Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are doing a career retrospective on the band Skid Row. Michael Ladano's here, and we're ready to talk. Let's do it.
Talking bands no one talks about. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are doing a career retrospective again. I've got Mr. Mike Ladano back, and he was here, and we did Kick-Axe. Well, Mike's been on the program quite a bit. He is back. We are going to look at the band Skid Row. We're going to take a look at the catalog, have a loose discussion. Yeah, here we go. Speaking of a loose discussion, here is Skid Row Slave to the Grind.
Oh.
I was on the 80s cruise in March.
Beautiful.
Sebastian Bach played, and he signed autographs, and he talked to everybody. I've not seen a more social guy who appreciated everybody that came up, took a picture with everybody. He shot the shit with everybody. This is a tangent already, ladies and gentlemen, but Mike Ladano, but do you remember seeing the episode? I don't know if you ever watch any of Sebastian's videos, but he did a video on his channel where he had a gigantic Kiss poster.
Oh, I do remember that.
I had one of those exact poster, because the way you got that was the magazine drive through your middle school. Okay.
Right. Okay.
They had Queen ones. They had a big giant Jimi Hendrix one. Anyway, that episode where everyone go look for Sebastian Bach Kiss poster. That same poster my buddy and I had, actually, I had that one. My buddy had a different one, but they were gigantic. Anyway, look at that video. But I brought that up to him when we were at the 80s cruise when he's signing it. And he's going, "Oh, yeah, that Kiss poster." I said, "Yeah, I had that same poster." If I
That's
only had,
cool.
Mike, if I only had that poster now, how much
You
that
could-
would be worth?
You could
Any of them.
sell it and buy a whole bunch more posters.
You could. But anyway, Sebastian Bach, we're already on a tangent. Love him. He did a great interview with Downtown Julie Brown. Actually, those are all down below. Check out all my
Check 'em
80
out.
Cruise stuff. And
Check them out.
the Sebastian Bach interview, absolutely. The guy is a hoot, and loves his fans. What a great guy. So anyway, I'm kind of on a Skid Row kick because I was so worked up from that cruise. So we're going to talk about the band today. So Mr. Ladano, after that tangent that went on for 5 minutes, how are you? And nice to see you.
I'm great. Thank you very much. It is now summertime in Canada, and I've been waiting for this for 6 months, and we're ready to go. We're going to do a summer season on Grab a Stack of Rock. We're going to be at the cottage a lot more. You're going to see my little chipmunk friend. I know you were a big fan of him last summer.
He's a nice little chipmunk.
So long story short, we're doing great over here, and the sun has never been brighter.
Well, there you go. If the sun's out, everything's good.
All good.
So I don't know who knows Skid Row, but I'm sure a lot of people that watch our channels probably know who Skid Row is.
I would hope so.
Bassist Rachel Bolan, and of course Sebastian Bach, like we led off with, was the original lead singer.
Actually,
go ahead.
if I may, because I'm a stickler for details.
Go ahead.
Sebastian Bach, and I want to talk about this because this is important.
Yeah.
Sebastian Bach is their second lead singer. Their original lead singer was a guy by the name of Matt Fallon. But in my opinion, that band's success is owed to the charismatic lead vocalist, the 18-year-old Sebastian Bach that they discovered at a photographer's wedding. That guy, his charisma, his natural talent. He's a big ego. We all know this, but that's part and parcel of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
They could not have risen to the success they had with Sebastian Bach. I said it. Haters are going to hate.
Well, I don't know who'd be a hater. I think, for one, he can sing anything. The guy is a music lover. He loves all types of music. He was up there. He went up and sang with Air Supply on the ship because he was just loves it. He loves
that stuff. He is a music fan.
Fan.
He's the first guy that you'll see going, "Hey man, I just picked up the new Kiss reissue. Holy crap!" He's a fan just like us.
But he can sing anything. Literally can sing anything. And, when he was in the band, I know people talk about it, but we're going to look at their later stuff a bit. There was just something magical with the combination. I'll leave it at that.
100%, 100%.
A lot of bands we talk about, there's a certain lineup that is magical, and this was magical. The unfortunate thing about Skid Row that I found was that the first album came out, 89?
Yeah.
And that's pretty darn late, because if we know what happened in 1991, is the whole grunge thing, and Nirvana took over. So they only had like a little window.
Right.
And I think
Grant,
that might have... been
I
a
think there
detriment
was a
to some of
difference
them.
though. I think there
What's
was a
that?
slight difference, ever so slight. And
Okay.
I'm just gonna may as well crack the sucker open and
Mm,
pull out the debut album so we can look at it.
yes.
But I think that this debut album for 1989 was just a little heavier than the average quote unquote hair metal band. Um, they looked a little nastier than the average band. Their hair wasn't all teased up. They weren't wearing makeup. They looked like they were from the street a little bit more than the other bands.
Hmm.
You
Well,
know,
Dave Sabo looks questionable, but everybody else looks kind of
yeah.
straight.
Um, I think that this band was just a little on the heavier side. And when the title change did happen in 1991, I think Skid Row managed to be one of the bands that survived it. I mean, they had a #1 album in
Mhm.
1991. They were one of the bands that survived that initial shockwave because they were heavier, and they got heavier on their second album, you know. And I think they were just a cut above the stuff that people were getting really sick of, just a tad. Obviously, the story would twist again, and you know the third album would tank, but we'll get there, I'm sure.
I like
Uh,
that third album though.
I love that third album.
Okay.
It's actually my favorite of the first three. I know, and people are going to be throwing bottles at me for some of my opinions. I'm just going
Oh,
to warn you right now
man,
that
I don't
there's a
care.
couple albums that I like a lot, and there's a couple albums that I'm kind of on.
Hmm.
So, you know, people are gonna throw bottles, and that's definitely a reference to Sebastian Bach and his bottle throwing incident in the 1989, 1990. But you know, I think as long as we can agree that we love Skid Row, then we should have some
Yeah,
peace here.
yeah, we'll be fine. It's in the warehouse, we just stand around and talk music around the water cooler. That's what we're
And
doing.
that's cool. The virtual water cooler.
Exactly.
Um, and these guys were definitely water cooler talk in 89, 90. They came out with this surprise single, Youth Gone Wild. Again, just a little bit heavier than the guys that were promoting them, like John Bon Jovi. Um, they came out with that second single, the very intense 18 in Life, very dark.
Mhm.
Um, and then, of course, the huge one, I Remember You, which was designed to be played during the summer of 1989. Like that
If
song
I
is
hear
perfect.
anything, well, I think Youth Gone Wild screams summer to me, but I Remember You as well screams summer. I
It
totally agree.
does.
Actually, this record kind of screams summer. Just 18 in Life, though, really doesn't. But when you hear that track, it takes you right back. I swear to God, to like 1989, because that
It
was a pretty
does.
big, that was a big track. And
You know,
the beautiful thing about this record, though, and I don't think you have anything like this in the catalog, is that this blends heavy. How would I even classify?
Heavy in Hair,
Yes, not really hair. I don't really hear hair metal on this too much. They just sound like a good
Big Gun.
rock, heady. What's that?
Big Gun's a little hair.
Yeah, but I don't know. They just seem more like a heavy rock band to me.
Yeah. I mean, they were influenced by bands like Judas Priest, obviously.
Hmm.
That doesn't necessarily come out so much on the first album, where they were writing more melodic, you know, hard
Right.
rock. It's hard rock. It's not as heavy as, say, Appetite for Destruction, and it's not as
No.
groundbreaking as Appetite for Destruction, but they were just different enough from Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, Warrant. They were just a bit heavier than those guys, and they were definitely more dangerous in image, you know? Um,
But I think what was great about this record though is the songwriting. Of course,
mhm.
you've heard that whole thing where everybody has their whole life to prepare for that first album, and I think it does show because there are definite singles. And I don't know if it's producer Michael Wagner who had a big, he knew what to do with this band, how to mold them for this first record. That could be it too. But the thing is with this first record, they do have the songs and they do have the magic. I'm
Yes.
not saying that the rest don't, but this is the only album in the catalog that's like this. I guess that's what I'm saying. And I think it's
Yeah,
a
it
great
is.
debut though, because man, three hit singles for one,
Huge hit singles.
huge,
All three.
right? But see what, okay, this is, it just popped in my head. You looked at Skid Row and you didn't look at them like, oh God, these guys aren't out of control. Think about how crazy hair metal was at this point.
Hmm.
These guys didn't look like that.
No.
They didn't look like Poison. It wasn't all extreme and stupid. Warrant. I don't want to. People may like that, but Skid Row is much more down, basic, down to earth, and I think that was, to me, the way I look at it. I think that's a big plus. The image at this time, and that might be why they sustained so long.
Yeah,
Just
I agree with that. I think tastes were already starting to change, you know. And, a lot of bands like Poison, they were kind of dropping the makeup. On Flesh and Blood, they pretty much kind of dropped the makeup.
Hmm.
And bands were toughening up their sound ever so slightly. We had thrash bands like Metallica hitting the charts. It was a really great time actually to be a rock fan. I remember the summer of '89 so well. And I Remember You was on our tape deck, but we were also hearing these other new songs that were coming out by other bands, like this song called Dr. Feelgood.
Hmm.
And there was another tune that was hitting the radio called Love in an Elevator. And both of these tunes were just a little bit harder edged than the previous singles by those bands. So you
Hmm.
could feel things were starting to change. But I mean, these were massive records. 1989 was an incredible summer, folks. If you're too young to remember, take it from
That
me.
was good.
It was an amazing summer for music. And the biggest arguments that we had around the campfire was who's better, Skid Row or Warrant? Because they were the two new bands that were out that summer.
Hmm.
And I think at that time I preferred Warrant because they were more into that style that I liked. But in the long run, I'm a Skid Row guy. That's
No.
more where my heart was going.
Right. Well, I remember when all this was coming out, they played a lot of this on MTV. And, I think by that time in the late 80s, I was kind of fed up with that whole, it just got, like I said, it just got so silly. But these guys, I did make a mental note back then that, wow, these guys, though, there's something different about these guys. They're
There
not
was
like your,
something different.
they weren't the run of the mill, you know, metal band just that would just disappear overnight or anything. There was something here. Just unfortunate they happened so late, but that's okay. Better late than never.
Yeah.
But I think this is a great record. I don't have any problem with it. It's catchy. The only one that's catchy like this, the other ones, like you said, you get Slave to the Grind. We're much harder.
Right.
But
Right.
that's 91. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
what
this
is
is
what is that?
this is an original 1991 Slave to the Grind. This is not the reissue that you'll see Sebastian Bach complaining
Yeah,
about on
he
his
hates
YouTube
that.
channel. He hates that there's misprints on this. They spelled things wrong, and he's questioning where the master, what master tapes they used.
And
This
he
is an
should question
original.
it. He
Yeah.
wasn't even involved in that.
No, no, he wasn't consulted at all. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that reissue might be missing Beggar's Day. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember.
There
But
was something different. I'm looking. This is the BMG Record Club edition,
right,
and there's a track that I'm having a mental issue.
that's my
What
version
version
of.
do you have?
I have both, Grant. I have
Of
both
course you do, for God's sakes.
because you need both. You have to have Get the F Out,
Yeah, I don't have
which
that.
is track 6 on the standard, what I'm going to call the standard retail version,
Hmm.
and on what I'm going to call the clean version, which it's not really, but we'll call it the
Well,
clean version.
yeah,
They
that's
have
what I
Beggar's
got.
Day. And this was done as sort of like a compromise. Make sure that the album can be on as many store shelves as possible. So they included an extra track. I, you had to have them both, in my opinion. You
Hmm.
had to have them both. I didn't know a lot of people who did, but me being me,
I
I
don't
had
know.
to
I
have them
have a
both.
signed BMG. That's what I've got.
And
I
that's
love
good
it.
too. That's great, in fact. I don't have anything signed by this band.
So,
But I'm just going to take
big
a quick
day.
look at the CD reissue
Yeah, sure.
from that box set, and it has Get the F Out, but it does not have Beggar's Day. And that to me
I
is
would
a
think that they
wasted
would.
opportunity.
Why? And that's on BMG. I guess this originally came out on Atlantic.
Atlantic, this one's Rhino Entertainment
Okay.
reissue. Um, and Rhino usually do a bang up job, but to not include both tracks, I don't get it,
Why
Grant.
wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? So, the Atlantic Years box set includes bonus live EP that was only released in Japan,
But we're missing a track.
but we're missing a track. It doesn't make any sense to
That
me.
doesn't make sense. That would cause hardcore. It would cause Sebastian Bach to lose his shit, probably,
I think it
because
did
it's
in that
not on
YouTube
there.
video.
But the box set, I don't know if he's made any videos, but you have to admit, anytime Mr. Bach does any kind of YouTube videos, it's always a must see.
He did
Uh,
one comparing that vinyl that I have to the new reissue, and he was like listening to both,
mhm.
comparing. Um, it's a pretty good video. Check it out. And I'm not going to say anything bad about that reissue because I haven't heard it myself, but I'm very happy to have an original 1991. I mean, that was the
Uh,
last year for vinyl in Canada,
that
essentially.
was the last year for vinyl in the United States. There were some things that trickled out, like the first Foo Fighters album. Nirvana, Nevermind, they pressed some back in the day, but for the most part, that was the end. And you know what was the last record that they pressed? You could still get vinyl in 91. There was a record, an Eric Clapton album that came out in the it came out, I think, on Columbia House on vinyl, but it never came out just in the stores. It came out on it was that Another Live album. Was it Another
Okay.
Live? That was 91, I think. That came out on the record clubs, but never released.
Right. And that's a very
Vinyl.
similar situation to the 8-track situation, as we
Yep.
know from Tim Derling's book. They were making 8-tracks all the way into 88, but you could
Mhm.
only get them through Columbia House. Guess where I got that Skid Row vinyl? That came from Columbia House in 91. It was the only place you could get it in Canada.
So that would be a Columbia. They probably pressed that then,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, they pressed that in Scarborough, Ontario, as far as I know.
Because
Um,
I know we're on a tangent, but we're talking Skid Row, so it all counts, ladies and
it's
gentlemen.
all good. I mean, we're talking about the original vinyl here.
I have never seen one of those. And I remember Sebastian Bach talking about it like it's rare as can be. And I've never looked to see how much the prices are for that, but I'm sure
I have no idea, but
it
there's
would
the
cost you a pretty penny.
there's if there we go, distributed by Columbia House.
But it's still, you even saw the shrink wrap on it.
Yeah, I just, slid it
Yeah.
open there. But there's no inner sleeve, there's no credits, there's no nothing. This is it.
That's
This is all you get.
mm,
So I was disappointed in that regard because on the CD you got a full booklet, um, and a larger version of this painting,
mhm.
which is by his father, David Bjerk. And here's an interesting fact for you is that David Bjerk was a successful painter in Canada long before Skid Row was a thing. David's painting of the Queen hung in Madison Square, sorry, Maple Leaf Gardens.
It
That's
was
a
in
whole other.
Madison Square
No,
Garden. It was
wrong,
there
wrong.
when Grand Funk played there.
Why would the Queen be in Madison Square Garden? No, Maple Leaf Gardens. Sorry, his portrait of the Queen was a main feature of the Maple Leaf Gardens, and later on, Sebastian Bach himself got to play on that stage. It was pretty magical for him.
Yeah,
So there's a fun fact for you is
that's
that's
pretty cool.
his father did the artwork for that. Some of his artwork is on Subhuman Race and on his solo albums. Um, Obviously, he paid a lot of homage to his father through the artwork of his music.
Hmm. I was going to say real quick that I'm just looking at the reviews for this record. This record actually got better reviews than that debut.
Yes,
And I would say that definitely uh, Skid Row somehow skirted around that sophomore slump and
by
made a
doing
better record
something,
that
they did something that was completely unexpected. They went way heavy to the extreme for their genre. This is about as heavy as a hard rock band can get before they start transitioning into something more like thrash metal. You could argue the title
it's
track,
like the
Slave to the Grind.
stepping low. Yeah.
Right, right. You could argue that Slave to the Grind is a thrash metal song. I think the drummer Rob Affuso, I think he was phenomenal. His style was really very, I mean, he could do the speed stuff, but he could also play loose. He was great.
Mhm.
The bass player, Rachel, he's got a great tone. He's got a nice, deep, rich bass tone. And the two guitar players are underrated. They'll never be considered, they're not up there, say, with KK and Glenn or a guitar duo, but there's some really great solo work on these songs. And if you listen to the solo work, what sets them apart is that they actually write memorable musical solos, very melodic with bits that you remember and you crave to hear when you hear those songs again.
It's like LEDs from the Cars. I'm just going to throw that out because when you mention that's the first guitar player I think of, because think about it, his solos, everything is placed perfectly, all well thought out, everything matches the song. On Skid Row, you've got the exact same thing. These guys worked out their parts. They're just not going willy-nilly.
No, they're
Everything's all
not.
worked out. I do appreciate it because maybe some people like that creativity where you're just it's an improvisation, but I like it when the solos are worked out. Like Ace Frehley, all
Yeah,
his solos are all worked out too.
you can hear a lot of Kiss in
You
Skid
can,
Row.
you can. Well,
I mean,
oh,
Sebastian's a huge Kiss fan, but
yeah, there you go. So maybe that's why. Who knows?
and also, those two guys, Snake Sabo and Scotty Hill, they've known each other for what, like freaking 40 years or something like that?
They probably can read each other's thoughts.
At that point of the game, yeah. And when a band has two guitar players that have played together that long,
Mhm.
that has to have, that has to work its way into the music.
Oh God,
And
yes. Yeah.
those two guys, none of these guys get enough credit for their musicianship. And everybody likes to sling rocks at Sebastian Bach. He's an easy target. He opens his mouth a lot. He says a lot of
Yeah.
things. And but that's what makes that's what makes us love him too. He's literally a David Lee Roth sized ego. He
And
really
he's
is.
very tall.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sitting there going like that.
Yeah, and
Like
that also helped him
6'5" or
stand
something.
out when they came out. Here's this young kid again. He was 18, 19 years old at that
Mhm.
time, and he's this tall, and he's got a personality the size of Montana.
Yeah.
Um, you know, again, you can't understate the importance of that guy to that band. But ultimately, of course, that drove them apart as well because being around a person like that 24/7, you can imagine what it does.
Well, plus he was the center point. Think about it.
Yeah.
He was on the Rolling Stone cover.
Yeah.
The band wasn't on the cover. I mean,
He
he
was on the
stood
cover
out.
of a few magazines. I have some
Yeah.
others here
So
that I was going to show. But he was on the cover a lot more than the other guys. Heck, he was on the cover of High Times.
yeah, he was
Um,
making fun of himself on the cruise. Of how, look at that girl. He just and he just laughs. He says, God, look at that. You know?
he had a great look. He had the long hair. I mean, that was great hair. But he also
Yeah.
had this kind of look that he would do, like a supermodel kind of
Mhm.
blue steel kind of. And his eyes, there'd be darkness around his eyes, but you'd see the eyes through that darkness, and it was like
Very rock and roll.
leading man kind of looks.
Mhm.
And of course, the women love Sebastian Bach, and he made a lot of friends in high places. Like Axl Rose is loyal to Sebastian Bach and vice versa to this day.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, I did not know that. I
Oh
do have a
yeah,
question, maybe because I don't know the answer to this. This came out in 91.
played to the grind.
How did this album sell? Well, in North America, do you know
I want to
this
say,
sold in 91? Because this came out what? This is June.
well, it went to number one. There were like four metal albums that went to number one that year: Metallica, Van Halen, Skid Row, well, and two Guns N' Roses albums. So there were five number ones that period of time. I think it went double platinum. I'm not 100% sure on that. But Monkey Business did well as a single.
Yep.
And then they came out with a couple of these ballads, which are really, they're slow burners rather than ballads. But the song Wasted Time is so good. It is so epic. That's the kind of song that Skid Row might end up going down being remembered for. These dark, epic, powerful ballads. There's more of them coming in the future discography after this. And when they do these kind of songs, it automatically just sounds like Skid Row, no matter who's singing.
Yeah.
Um, I think Wasted Time is possibly the pinnacle of their entire songwriting career, to be honest with you. I think it's that good. But as far as I recall, this album did very well. They went out on tour with Pantera opening. Do you remember that? And again, there's Sebastian Bach making more friends. Him and Phil Anselmo were tight. I don't know if
Mhm.
they still are, but they were. Um, they opened for Guns N' Roses when they started the Use Your Illusion tour. That was a heck of a double bill when they hit Toronto. Skid Row opening. Hometown boy, Sebastian Bach, grew up in Peterborough, Ontario. He hits Toronto opening up for Guns N' Roses. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember this doing very well, although it didn't hit the heights of the first album. By 1991, nothing would. But also, they clearly didn't give a crap about that, or they would not have recorded the album that they recorded.
Mhm.
There's nothing on this album that really could have fit on the first one.
It's a different animal.
It's
Well,
a different animal.
didn't the band feel I swear to God I read something about this years ago, but I don't think they were 100% thrilled with the way that first album sounded. I think they thought it was a bit too glossy, a
I
little bit
believe
too
you're right.
polished.
Yeah,
Kind of like Nirvana. Nirvana thought the same thing about Nevermind.
they
Kurt
did.
Cobain wanted it to sound like he had originally heard it before it was, mixed and all that, before it was properly mixed, because he thought
Yeah.
it was too much. I don't know. I'd like to hear Nevermind and the way it originally sounded, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for a good raw recording. I'm a big fan of raw recordings myself, but on the other hand, that's what fans grew up with.
well, I'm
30
just
odd years. This is what they grew up with.
yeah, but I can't imagine that sounding any different to me. I think it's perfect the way it is
Yeah.
because I think the production suits those tracks and that songwriting and everything. It's really, you might say that Slave to the Grind's a better record, but still, you have to admit that the debut was iconic and, in a lot of ways, that's what you think Skid Row really sounds like. All those songs, those three songs we mentioned are still played every
Yes.
day on the
Yes.
radio.
and they're still playing them live, of course,
Yeah.
obviously. But a lot of the other songs from this album they're still playing live as well, such as
Yeah.
"Piece of Me." They're still
Mhm.
playing live. That was a big concert staple when they first started out. In fact, there was a music video for "Piece of Me." I don't think it was a single, but it definitely was a music video. It was a live in a club kind of rock and music video showing, the tough side of Skid Row.
Mhm.
But they got a lot of coverage here in Canada, probably because of, or partly because of Sebastian Bach being local to the Toronto area. Fun fact.
Yeah.
Fun fact. There was a band in the late 80s called Madame X.
Yeah.
Maxine Petrucci, the sister of Roxy Petrucci from Vixen, was the main character. I believe she played guitar in Madame X. Lead vocalist was a guy by the name of Sebastian Bach. And on my VHS collection, I have just a snippet of a quick, like 1 second of an interview with Madame X where Sebastian Bach's got the big hair like this and he's glammed. He's wearing lipstick and everything. And he doesn't want you to see that picture, probably.
I
But
think
it's
when
true.
Vixen was on the cruise before, they were talking about that.
Oh, there you go. So there's,
Mhm.
I mean, nobody's hiding it, I guess. But it's funny.
No, they let everybody know that, yeah, because I think someone in the audience, when they did like their Q&A, someone asked them about it, and they said, yep, that's true.
Yeah, it is true. I have a snippet of it. He was local to Toronto, and there he is in the Much Music studios where he was, he was watching Much Music every day as a kid, and then he's on Much Music with Madame X. And of course, a year or two later, he was back promoting that first Skid Row album.
Yeah.
He was sort of a local hero in the club scene. He had another band called VO5 with the drummer from Madame X, a guy
Like
by the name of
VO5, like Alberto VO5.
that exactly is what they
shampoo?
called it. And he was with the drummer from Madame X, Mark Bam Bam McConnell, who ended up in Sebastian Bach's solo band later on. But yeah, like he was a local legend in that club scene in Toronto. He made a lot of friends there, and he had a lot of success in Canada for that reason. A lot of magazines. I mean, he was easy to print. The guy was very quotable. He was very photogenic, and trouble followed him around. And I guess by the time the third album happened, the other guys were starting to there was tension. Let's put it that way. There was tension.
Yeah, I was going to say, before we hit to that third album that came out in 1995, Subhuman Race, we probably should just touch on that they put out an EP in 1992 of cover
Great
versions.
EP.
Great. And you know what? I totally forgot him. And that's in the box set too, right?
Yes. This has Sebastian Bach doing a duet with Rob Halford on a live version of Delivering the Goods.
I
Has
listened to that today.
Tammy Down from Faster Pussycat backing up Rachel Bolan on lead vocals for Psychotherapy. That was a single.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
One of my favorite tracks on here is their cover of Come On and Love Me by Kiss. I mean, that's such a great song to start with Skid Row covering it was great. They do Rush's What You're Doing, which is a track from the first Rush album.
Yeah.
I mean, that comes from Bach. That's Bach's pick. And interestingly enough, there's a version of Little Wing on here by Hendrix, but the music video is a completely different version. It's like, I think that music video was recorded live. I think the audio from it was recorded live, and that's a completely different version.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard that.
Check it out if it's on YouTube. Check it out because, bands don't often record dedicated audio tracks for their music videos. I can think of two examples, being that and March of the Pigs by Nine Inch Nails. Rush may have done something like that in the 70s, but
there's
it's very
somebody
rare.
else in that era that did that. I want to say it was Bon Jovi, but I could be wrong. What is
No,
it?
I think you're thinking of the Born to Be My Baby video, which kind of mixes studio with
Maybe
live.
that's it.
Yeah, but this is a full-on, completely different version of Little Wing. Would love for them to release something like that on a box set. Like, somebody's neglecting this catalog. They need somebody who has the knowledge and the dedication of a fan like myself to handle this catalog. They have live B-sides that are not on here. Have you ever heard the live version of Get the F Out from Live at Wembley?
No.
It's the B-side to the Wasted Time single, and Bach goes on this long rant. There's this local council here that says that we're not allowed to play any songs with any swearing in them. Well, you know what I say to them? Get the fuck out. And of course they go into the song. And according to a buddy of mine up in Scotland, that band Stans, they were banned from ever playing Wembley again. Not that they ever could play Wembley again, but that ban happened. They were banned from Wembley for breaking those orders. Anyway, look, long story short, it's an historic B-side that
Yeah.
should be included in a set like this. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, someone doesn't know what they were doing when they were putting that together. And God
Clearly.
knows how it sounds because Sebastian Bach did not like the remaster of Slave to the Grind, so I hope it sounds decent. Might be better off just to stick in these because these probably aren't all maximized and
Right.
brick walled. There's dynamic range. These I was talking to Sebastian at the on the cruise how this sounded much better than that vinyl. He said and I had talked to him about it. He said he hates it. Absolutely what they did to Slave to the Grind on that remaster on vinyl. He just got all he don't get him started.
Like I said, there's a great YouTube video of him listening to that.
He said just stick to this.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why I kept my 2 copies here.
Yeah.
Kept my original copies of all my Skid Row. I bought this for that live EP that I mentioned as
Yeah.
a live bonus EP, but
Well,
you know,
you have to let me know when you play it how it could do an A/B comparison. I am really curious how it sounds.
I will do that. In fact, I can even maybe send you some visuals, like some Audacity
That'd be
waveforms.
interesting.
Take a visual look.
Oh yeah, I'd like to see that. But anyway, this got up to the EP it went gold in the States. It got up to 58 on the Billboard chart. I think it's fun. I don't know if it's something that everyone needs unless you're Michael Ladano, but I think it's good. But there was a 3-year from this came out in 92 and then the next record came out in 95. And that's we know how things work back then. And that seemed like a big break.
Yeah.
A lot of bands, they take that much time off and well, they can't get their momentum back.
No.
But this came out in March of 95, last album with Sebastian Bach.
And there's the single. This is the pre-release single that some people managed to get a hold of and hear before the album came out. But there it is. That was the first single, My Enemy, and that was the music video that we saw first. And
this produced by Bob Rock. I'm looking at the reviews. Martin Popoff gave it an 8 out of 10.
I agree. You know what? I'd go even further. This is my favorite Skid Row album.
I think it's
this is
I think it's brilliant.
What Sebastian Bach said in a local Toronto magazine called Meat Magazine. What he said is we're taking our time with this next record because we need to come out with a record that's better than the first 2 combined. Now that's a hell of a statement when you have the first 2 records of Skid Row. Does this top the first 2 records combined? No, that's silly. Is it great? I think so. I've played this album a number of times this week. I said before, Wasted Time might be the best track Skid Row's ever written. Well, I'll be damned. I'll be damned if Breaking Down, the ballad here at second last track, isn't as good. There's some remarkable ballads on here, much darker. We're going even darker.
This is a dark record.
Yes. But it's also heavy and aggressive. There's a track on here called I think it's called Bonehead is the name of the track, which is just pure straight ahead thrash. It's full on. There's another one here. It's a groover, Beat Yourself Blind. And if Sebastian doesn't just blow his voice out on this track, I think his singing here is to the extreme. He took it further than he's ever taken it before on this record, intentionally. I don't think there's a bad track on here. Medicine Jar, incredible. Iron Will, another just straight on, full blown, rockin' heavy track. Frozen, slow, grinding, very grinding. There's so much good stuff on here. So much good stuff on here.
Yeah.
There was tension in the studio with the band. There's tension in the studio with Bob Rock. There's
tension.
They don't like the final product. When they released this, which is further down the line, but when they released this compilation here, 40 Seasons, the best of Skid Row, they included demos and remixes of some of the Subhuman Race material. A demo version of Frozen, remixed versions of Into Another, My Enemy, and Breaking Down, and a live version of Beat Yourself Blind. So none of the studio tracks from this album were deemed worthy to include on their best of. And that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Considering I think this is their crowning achievement, but whatever.
I think so. But you know what? I have another perspective, which is, some people thought it was, quote unquote, too alternative.
I've heard that as a complaint.
Yeah.
I listened to it. Well, we're in 1995.
You have to adapt to the new times.
But I think they did a great job adapting.
They did.
This record sounds great. I love the production on it. I think Bob Rock was a good choice. Hey, maybe Bob Rock made the band work a little bit harder on this. I don't know. I don't know
Bob
what
Rock,
happened behind, but this, we'll say this. This did get to 35 on the chart. It did not go gold, or did it ever go gold? Let me look. It got gold. It went gold in Japan. Never went gold here in North America at all. 165,000 copies.
in Japan is where they released this live EP.
Oh, cool. I've never seen that.
It's very well, I mean, it was only released in Japan and now in this.
Okay.
That's anyway, 6 tracks, a lot of the new stuff. And the new stuff sounded great live.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't say a lot of the new stuff. There's only one there, Beat Yourself Blind. Everything else there is basically Slave to the Grind, and then another cover of Delivering the Goods with Halford. Oh, and Psychotherapy's on there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a bad time for rock in general, but I understand that they had a falling out over the decision whether or not to accept an offer to open for Kiss on their reunion tour. And I guess if I have this story straight, Sebastian really wanted to do this Kiss tour, and the other guys poo-pooed the idea. And I can't imagine opening for Kiss being a bad idea. But
can't imagine that. Kiss was always very, very gracious and always treated their opening acts very well. I don't know. Maybe the rest of the band thought that they were too big.
I think there's that to it. But
hey,
you know,
we had a definite drop off, Mike. We had a
Right.
definite drop off. Whether it's not quality, but
No.
just the era, you know.
No, you could have put out the best album of your career at that time, which some bands, I'm going to argue some bands did, such as Motley Crue, might have put out one of their best albums of their career, and they didn't have a prayer. There was not a prayer for a band of that ilk. They were considered outdated. They were considered misogynists in an era where Kurt Cobain was sort of like trying to preach feminism, you know? And a lot of people were being turned off by things they actually used to like and used to listen to, and they're embarrassed by it. And they're embarrassed by the way these bands looked as well, because quite frankly, compared to what bands looked like in 1995, you know, the teased hair looked rather silly. So Skid Row were out of fashion. There was no way around it. They were out of fashion. They did not survive the grunge onslaught. And I guess over the course of 1996, they broke up. And so Rachel Bolan put together a solo project. I've forgotten the name of it. Didn't do much. And Sebastian ended up doing a solo album a little bit later on with, as I mentioned, Mark Bam Bam McConnell from Madam X. Skid Row did regroup. Do we want to go there now?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, because I like this album. I really like this album. And whether people agree with me or not, I don't care, because I have spent many, many hours listening to Thickskin featuring the new lead singer, Johnny Solinger. And Johnny Solinger's no Sebastian Bach. There's no attempt to replicate. No. They had Phil Varone from Saigon Kick on drums, and they wrote another batch of absolutely great songs. There's a track here, track 4 there, Born a Beggar. I hold it up against all of the classic Skid Row material, all of it. It stands up. They should be playing Born a Beggar live, but nobody would know it. It's unfortunate that, and this is 2003, by the way.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's so much time had passed. We're talking 8 years since the last album. And there's Johnny Solinger right there. No, he looked the part. He looked the part, definitely, but he was not a screaming, high-pitched Sebastian Bach kind of singer. He could do some screaming, but it wasn't the same, obviously. It kind of looks low budget, doesn't it, compared to
I was going to mention that
stuff.
If you're trying to sell something, I would say that looks like a homemade product. And what was it? It was on
Justin Skid Row Records.
So it was a self-release.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine, but I don't know. I don't know how this was distributed. I don't remember seeing this back in the day, even in a store.
I can't remember where I got this. I cannot remember if I ordered it from an Amazon or how I got it. I can't remember.
I have never in my life, in all these years bins, have never seen one in the used bins.
And that's a real shame. I wonder who has the rights to it now, because ripe for reissue. Absolutely ripe for reissue. And they did a DVD at the same time. I think it was called like Beneath the Skin or something like that. You could reissue that as a combo pack with the DVD today. It's a no-brainer. It's a win-win situation.
I just don't think that they think that there's a I don't know. I mean, this never charted. Well, on the U.S. independent album chart on Billboard, it got to 6 for an
which is
independent
not,
record.
which is irrelevant, all but irrelevant, right?
Right. Yeah. It's
Um,
not the Billboard 200.
no, it's a joke when you think about the fact they had a #1 album.
Yeah.
It's a joke, and it's a shame because I really think that the material on this album is incredibly strong. I believe that sincerely. Ghost, second track, incredible song. See You Around, sort of a tender, a nice ballad, not dark. And then we have I Remember You Too, which is I Remember You
I
played as
think
a punk song, and I freaking love it. We all know Rachel Bolan's a punker. He
Mhm.
did psychotherapy on the EP. I love it. Some people will puke, they'll turn it off, they'll hate it because
Well,
it doesn't sound like the song they like. I love it. It works so well as a punk song.
but these guys can play anything.
Yeah.
If they're going to do psychotherapy, they could punk up their own material. It's all good.
I mean,
I like it.
they even go country on the next album. They do a country song on the next album.
Mm-hmm.
They can do anything.
They can do anything.
Solinger was from Texas. He's
Oh,
gone
really?
now, unfortunately. He has country roots as well. He had a band called Solinger before Skid Row.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
how they found him.
Oh, right. That's right. He's the guy that passed away.
Yeah, he passed away sadly.
Oh.
I think he had addiction issues, but he was
Oh,
a
he
great,
had liver. He had
Yeah.
liver. Yeah, probably alcoholic or something. I don't know.
probably. But he did just as much music with Skid Row as Sebastian did. He did 2 full-length albums
Mhm.
and 2 full EPs that amount to another third album with Solinger.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have all that stuff. I do have this album here that Tim Derling absolutely hates. He was ranting about this one earlier, Revolutions Per Minute.
And I don't think that the cover's all that great either.
It's not that great. This is on Steam Hammer, which is sort of like where old metal bands go to die. There's a couple good songs on here. I really like Another Dick in the System. Strength is a cover tune. That's the one that Tim Derling liked. There's You Lie, which is the country song. And then we have the corn-fed remix of You Lie at the bottom there. A lot of more punk influence coming through on this. Again, Rachel, he has co-writing credit. I think he has sole writing credits on most of the album.
Well, I was going to mention that. Why is Sabo not so much co-writing with them?
I don't know. I
Bolan
think
on
Sabo was also getting involved with management at the time, doing a lot of management, but he has one writing credit on this album? And
Yeah.
I saw Scotty
2.
Hill.
White
2.
Trash and Disease.
There you go. And I think Scotty Hill has 1 co-write. Everything else is Rachel. Solinger never wrote anything. They have a new drummer on this named Dave Guerra. Phil Verone ended up doing adult films, is what I'll say.
Well, everybody has to have a hobby.
You got to do what
You got to earn some money somewhere.
Got to use your God-given talents.
And if you're talented, hey.
Now that's a nice looking CD itself.
Yeah, why, Mike, why are they able to pull together the CD artwork, but not the rest of it?
Well, it's like the Contrarians talk about back covers that are better than the front covers. Well, here's a CD that's better than the front cover.
There is a show right there.
Yeah.
CD artwork that's
better than the cover.
Better than the cover.
Might be hard to dig up 5 or 10, but here's one. And that could have been a nice cover. It's a nice like sports car, muscle car.
I know what that font at the bottom is too. I can't remember the name of it.
No, but look, and they're doing this cheesy tribal tattoo kind of flame job. I hate that. It was so in trend in 2006 when this came out. This did nothing. This went nowhere, and it didn't help.
I've never seen it. It's all that later catalog, Mike. It doesn't appear anywhere because it didn't sell at all.
It didn't sell at all. It's on, like I said,
the
Steam
reviews
Hammer.
for here, I'm looking at the reviews, like just All Music gave it 2.5, melodic.net gave it 1 star, Hard Rock, whatever that is, gave it a 7 out of 10. It's kind of mixed. It got mixed reviews.
Yeah, it definitely got mixed reviews, deservedly so. Just ask Tim Derling.
And you know what? Speaking of Tim Derling, since you brought him, for him to really dislike a record, this must be something. Seriously, because he usually likes a lot of stuff.
Well,
photo catalog. To be fair,
Tim does not like to discuss his negative opinions much. He likes to be a much more positive.
Well, I understand.
And I get that too, but
Positive's good.
And I hope I'm not Tim. I hope I'm not like betraying our conversation this morning, but he really did not like this.
That's fine.
And I
You
get
can't
it.
like it all.
I mean, I was frequenting the message boards, Blabbermouth and everything at the time. And let me tell you, this lost a lot of fans. It really did no favors to their reputation. It sank their reputation further, is what this did. They recovered somewhat.
Well, the thing is, anybody looking at this catalog, we have to be honest about this stuff because, you know, if you don't like it, you don't like it. We don't want you to buy a record that if you're going to go venture down in the Skid Row catalog, maybe this isn't one you need to pick up. I mean, it's nowhere near the first 3 albums. Let's just keep it at that.
And it's nowhere near this either. This is something. This is true to the Skid Row sound. This is the next natural step in Skid Row sound after Subhuman Race. It kind of dials back the darkness a little bit, adds a little bit more brightness. This would be, if you find it, great, but don't like go out there and spend $35 on an import or something like that. So, you know, they took some time to sort of get themselves together. They got a new drummer who is still in the band today, Rob Hammersmith. And they put out this, because bands felt like albums weren't selling anymore, they did an EP.
Yeah.
And I
came out on Megaforce.
Yeah, I was just looking for the label and I couldn't even read it. I don't even see. You know what? I think Megaforce might have done a reissue of it because there was a reissue. This doesn't have any record label on it at all. I have a feeling this is another Skid Row Records
there's
production.
like chapter 1 and chapter 2.
Right, and chapter 1 was reissued later on. This has no label on it, so I'm going to say this is Skid Row Records again. There's nothing on there but a record label.
Skid Row Records.
It was reissued with 2 bonus tracks, one of which I think was a Priest song, and they did an Ezo song called Fire Fire, which is a great song, but I don't have that. And the fact that they did a reissue with 2 bonus tracks after I bought this turned me off enough that I never bought Volume 2. I've never heard Volume 2.
So you're saying Fire Fire's not on there?
Fire Fire is not on here. I only have the 5 basic tracks.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a cool band photo. I'll give them that.
It is a cool band photo. Good. I was a Solinger fan. I'll be honest. I liked Solinger with Skid Row, but I don't remember any of these songs, and I played it 2 days ago. So that tells you something. It kind of
got mixed reviews too.
I never heard chapter 2. Again, there's a chapter 2 with 2 bonus tracks covers. Skid Row, can you reissue these just as 1 disc so I don't have to frickin' collect all this stuff? Just reissue it as 1 disc with all the bonus tracks, please.
I think it's out.
Who's got the rights to it? Why is this not available? Everybody's releasing, my album that never came out on vinyl. We're doing a limited pressing of 300 copies on
you're
gold.
right. It's not out together.
You know, somebody needs to reissue this stuff.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
I'm getting a little heated
it's okay.
here.
It's okay. Well, anyway, 2022, we get a new Skid Row record.
Yeah, but there were a lot of singers between those 2 Skid Row records. We had Tony Harnell. We had Brain Fart. We had ZP Thart. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. ZP Thart.
Yeah.
And I think there was one other guy in there too. But it took Eric Grunwald. Eric Grunwald from, what was he, Swedish? In Sweden Idol or something like that?
I don't know.
I don't know his story. He was in a band called Heat with periods, Heat. I was not familiar with Eric Grunwald until this came out, really.
Yeah, he was Swedish Idol.
There you go, Swedish Idol. He was the short-haired member. Very charismatic.
That's a cool picture too.
It is a cool picture. This is finally on a label again. They're on Ear Music. Great front cover. Like, we're back. That cover says we're back. And there's also a song on here called Resurrected, which is about them being back. And a lot of people really like Eric Grunwald. Now, I've listened to this album 3-4 times this week, and I will not diss Eric Grunwald. I will not diss him. I will not say anything bad, except to say
great.
It didn't click with me, Grant. It didn't click. I guess I just prefer, man, Sebastian Bach's kind of singing is just more like he's blowing out his throat. He is ragged. He is letting it loose. Eric's a much more schooled kind of singer. He can do the job, but it's a different kind of singing. It's a schooled version of singing. To use a guitar example,
right?
Ace Frehley plays one great style of guitar. You know, he's loose. He's sloppy. Just one. He's loose. He's sloppy.
He's pretty loose.
But he's great. Tommy Thayer. is arguably a much better guitar player. He can do so much more. He's a much more schooled guitar player, superior, but he's not Ace Frehley. And I think that's the only thing that's holding me back from fully embracing the Gangs Are All Here, is that it's just not the style of singing that I like with Skid Row. But there's some good songs on here.
No, I think the record sounds good. I think the guitar sounds phenomenal.
Great.
The lead work on this record's phenomenal, and it really rocks hard.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that. And Gronwell, I wasn't offended. I just listened to it and go, yeah, I could kind of see maybe a Sebastian Bach influence. He's no Sebastian Bach, but he is also not offensive, or I didn't listen to it and, want to turn around and vomit. I thought for a band that hadn't put out anything for a long time, I think it was a welcome return, and I thought it was fine.
A lot of people called it the album of the year. Yes. They won back their fans. Eric Grunwald has charisma, not the same as Sebastian Bach's charisma, but he has his own. And I mentioned earlier that when Skid Row do a certain, I know I got a show at 8, so okay, we're past 8.
I know, I already told him I'm running late.
Okay, well, I'll finish up very quickly here. I'll finish up very quickly here. I mentioned earlier that Skid Row, when they do a certain kind of ballad, it sounds like Skid Row, and there's one here, second last track, October Song, and it is so good. Nice. It is so good. It is the equivalent of all those great ballads that I mentioned earlier on in the show. But Eric, unfortunately, has health issues. Oh, and he's a cancer survivor. Oh. And he was advised by his health team that you can't do these kind of tours that Skid Row is demanding. No. You need to stay home and take care of your health, go to your appointments, take your medications, be observed by your medical team. You can't be on the road all the time. And he was forced to resign. And that's very sad, because he is going to grow on me. I guarantee you that. I don't want anybody to throw any stones at me here.
They don't throw stones in the warehouse, Michael.
Good. We don't want that.
We don't.
I'm going to continue listening. I'm going to let these songs grow on me. I am going to let Eric grow on me. But in the meantime, I really like Lzzy Hale. I'm a Hailstorm fan.
I listened to some Lzzy Hale today. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I thought it was okay too. She has a very natural, again, charisma. She blends well with the Skid Row guys. They're clearly having fun on stage. She's a great singer. She is one of my favorite singers today. She can't do what Sebastian does, as you alluded to earlier, but she's doing a damn fine job. I think she deserves a round of applause. And I would like to see that relationship continue. A long time ago, the Stone Temple Pilots did a brief period with Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, and they did an EP, and they called themselves Linkin Park featuring Stone Temple Pilots featuring Chester Bennington. Skid Row can do the same thing. Skid Row with Lzzy Hale, which is how they're advertising themselves right now. They could do the same thing. They could knock out a great EP, and I think that would be an opportunity.
It's like the Smithereens when Robin Wilson from Jim Blossom sings, or Marshall Crenshaw. Smithereens with Marshall Crenshaw, same kind of thing, but that's cool.
Queen with Adam Lambert,
that's what they should do.
Well, that's what they call it. They don't call it Queen. They call it Queen plus Adam Lambert. Wow. And they did that with their previous singer, which was a guy by the name of Paul Rogers. Yeah. But anyway, I think Skid Row, they were on the cusp here of having another great run until they were derailed by this cancer. And I hope the future is still bright for Skid Row. I know that they still have more great records in them, but please, somebody, start reissuing these things with the care and love they deserve. Did you know that the first album can be had with a bonus live album? Did you know that? Only on iTunes.
Well, why didn't you put it out that way? On here in the box, you had plenty of,
Because that's not out. It's Tim Derling's words. It's only air. You can only buy MP3s of it. Reissue the damn thing as a 2-disc set with the live album. Put it out for Record Store Day.
This is, I have it backed up here. So if something happens to my file, got a backup.
This never goes away.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
No, we're on the same page. We like physical product. I don't like buying air or ones and zeros. I will if I have to. I did with that live album, but I shouldn't have to. I should be able to buy it on a CD.
Correct.
That's ridiculous. Nobody seems to have any confidence in Skid Row is the problem.
That's probably it. They don't really have any. It's amazing that they even put out the box set. It's amazing they even went to that extent where they reissued the vinyl, but obviously no one really cared. They're just trying to get to that record buying public. And, you know, you should have consulted the band. You should have consulted Sebastian Bach. They should have okayed it. They should have gotten test pressings or whoever, the engineer, Michael Wagner, whoever. Someone should got a test pressing and went, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
But didn't consult them. That just makes me angry.
Probably because Sebastian would have had all those complaints that he talked about, and then the album never would have come out.
It would have drove him nuts.
Yeah.
He's an audiophile.
Yeah. But he cares. He cares. He wants the product to be worth the money that you and I are spending on it. And we're spending a lot of money, Grant. Let's not lie. I mean, I bought that essentially for one live EP.
I think I got this for $2.
Okay. Well, I spent a lot of money.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I love Skid Row, and I would continue to spend my money if they put out something worth buying.
Well, the whole thing is, I don't know what Sebastian Bach did to piss him off so badly, but he did say that he screwed up several times. But if they really wanted to be successful and make some bank, settling your differences and going out on tour with that lineup is money.
Nobody's getting any younger. If time goes on further, there might be a member who can no longer do it, and that would be tragic.
That would be. So on that note, I'm going to end this, dog, because I have another show.
Excellent. You take care.
Ladano, I want to thank you for coming on and talking Skid Row. Hopefully, the whole idea for this is to turn you onto these bands and check this stuff out and what not to check out for the most part. Down in the comments, please let us know what you think of Skid Row, what records you like, what records you don't like. Any particular songs, tracks, we want to hear from you because I always read them. We'll respond. I'll make Ladano respond too. We check the comments. And if you do have that box set, what do you think sound-wise? I'm curious. It might sound great. I don't know who mastered it. I don't know anything about it, but I do applaud them for bringing it up, bringing it back out. But it could have been a well executed instead of, come on, Slave to the Grind with not all this tracks.
Come on, that's inexcusable.
Inexcusable. But whatever. So anyway, please like, subscribe, you know the whole thing. Check out Mr. Ladano's channel. His link is down below, so check out his channel. Content there. Grab a stack, for God's sake.
Grab a stack of socks.
But subscribe to his channel, and we'll see you on the next one. What's next in the warehouse? I have no idea. I do know on Sea of Tranquility, we're going to be doing a ranking of the Tommy Shaw solo catalog.
Ooh,
and we're going to do Black Oak, Arkansas.
Oh, nice. Jim Dandy
and the Rescue. Nice. All right, based on that, we'll see you. Michael, I don't know. We'll do something next month. I don't know what, but we'll be in contact because I love doing these shows with you.
Me too. They're fun.
There's more on the way. There are more bands we want to turn you on to. So, all right, everybody, have a good night, and we'll see you.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll.